Welcome everybody to Cash Call this week. Brian, why don't you go ahead and let them know the topic while I try to cue so I can see what's going on in this live over here in Facebook.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about open houses, and we're going to talk a lot of different things. We're going to talk some scripts. We're going to talk some best practices. We're going to talk intent, as Dale and I always really focus on, and just, trying to figure out how to get the highest and best use out of your time. So everybody knows that open houses are a great way to generate some buyer leads. I'm going to argue they're also a great way to generate some seller leads. And then, what I want to focus on is if I'm going to spend, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in an open house on Sunday, how do I get the highest and best out of that? Because that's prime time for, other appointments, and it's prime time for my family. So if I'm going to sit in an open house for 3 hours, to me, or even if you sit in an open house for 2 hours, I want to make sure that's the highest and best use of my time. So open houses. Yeah,
you better be getting paid on that if you're going to be spending your weekend doing that kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So as always, let's talk about the intent, right? So when somebody, what's the intent? Can the intent is pretty damn high, right? You do get some, you get some tire kickers, you get some nosy neighbors, you get some people with nothing better to do who just happen to stop by your open house. But the bulk of the people that walk through that door are going to be buyers.
Yes. Absolutely. So, here's a statistic out there in case anyone heard. 82% of people who show up for an open house do not have an agent. What I mean by don't have an agent doesn't mean that someone didn't sell them a house, doesn't mean they haven't even looked at other houses with agents. They have no committed, signed relationship with an agent. And I think that that's very, very important to understand, because I hear this all the time that, the guy walked in the open house, well, they all had agents. Well, my guess is they didn't. And in case you guys don't know this, the public is really smart about what we do nowadays. It doesn't mean I don't think we should continue to educate them, but they learned pretty quickly in the last open house when the agent berated them about whether they had an agent or not, that they know when they walk into your open house, if I tell them I have an agent, they'll leave me alone. So it's just something to take into consideration. Again, not remotely suggesting we cross any ethical lines, but treat them as if they might become your client, even if they say they have an agent. That's my first tip of talking about open houses.
But we just learned a very valuable lesson, Brian. Tell everybody before they leave your open house, tell that next agent you have an agent.
Absolutely. and that's really what it is. Here's the thing. I'd like to say there's not a lot of agents who have a lot of this information that we have, but there's a lot of people out there in 2019 doing things significantly better than we did them 5, 10, 15 years ago. And we have to. It's a very competitive market right now. We have, we've got commission compression. We've got a whole bunch of different things going on. So to be successful, people are having to work harder and try harder. So, all the stuff that we're teaching on these cash calls, I'd like to say we're the only ones, but realistically, there's a lot of other people out there teaching similar things, and that's okay.
No, we teach it better, Brian. Come on, Brian. We teach it better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yes. Just like there's a lot of agents out there, there's a lot of crappy agents out there, right? And it's the really good ones who practice their craft and take it to the next level. And listen, you and I both have worked a lot of leads. We've talked to a lot of people, and we have agents. I have coaching clients. You actually have agents under you and coaching clients who are making these calls, who are talking to people. Brian, is there still an 80-20 effect going on between the agents who suck and the agents who are good at actually doing it? Is that not true?
100%. And let me say this, and this is one of my favorite things to tell agents. If everybody did the things that you and I tell them to do, this industry would suck. And what I mean by that is, think about it. If every single agent in your market got up and called 50 people every single day, we've got think about the number
and listen to Brian and I and did it the way we tell you to do it, that would we would all have, most of us would have to go get jobs, right?
Exactly. So thank God most agents suck. Sorry guys out there who are watching, but the truth of the matter is the 80-20 rule applies anytime you get a group of over about 30 or 40 people. 80-20 applies almost immediately. You're going to get 80% of the people, 80% of the business done by 20% of the people, and about 80% of the people are just going to do. They're not gonna listen to the things that we're talking about. So anyway, maybe I can get off my little high horse there for a second and just say, let's just talk about what happens with an open house. So Dale, I'm gonna kick it over to you. So somebody walks into an open house. What's step one for you?
So obviously actually, do you want to start with setting up the open house? Because this
Sure,
starts. Let's do that first, and then we'll talk about people walking into the open house and what we're going to say to them.
Perfect.
So getting set up for the open house, Brian, what's the cardinal sin of an agent that's doing an open house?
So there's a lot of them, unfortunately, but let me start with, if the open house starts at 2 o'clock, don't show up at 2 o'clock.
Or 2:05.
What's that? Or 2:05. Good Lord, I don't even go there. That really makes my head hurt. But, and I've had sellers, I hate to admit this, we've had people on our team do this. You get a phone call, and the way we have it is basically the listing agent isn't doing the open house, the buyer's agent's doing an open house. So that listing agent gets that phone call because the seller, by the way, in case you guys don't know this, sellers will sometimes watch your open house, which means they'll sit in their car 3 houses down, you're not paying attention. And especially if you don't even know the seller, if you're a buyer's agent who's doing this open house, and you get phone calls. So, your agent showed up 15 minutes late, or, there was only one sign. So cardinal rule 1, show up at least 15 minutes early, because that seller wants to feel like you're there, prepared and ready and professional. And if you don't appear professional, that's the very first and easiest way to get fired. It's almost better to not do an open house than to do an open house and not be on time. So for me, that's cardinal rule 1.
Yeah. And get a lot of signs out there, as many signs as you can put out. Ideally, you would have door knocked, or you would have called, or you would have done some sort of social media message or ad or something, promoted it to your database of potential buyers that are out there. Just put them out there, right? That's what you need to do, is to help drive people into your open house first, so that you have more people that you can talk to, right?
Right, and let's talk about some of the cheats out there. So ideally for me, some of the things that Dale said are absolutely 100% true. Ideally, you're going to do a 10-10-20. For those of you who don't know what a 10-10-20 is, it's real simple. I'm going to go 10 doors to the left of the house, 10 doors to the right of the house, and 20 doors across the street. So I'm talking about knocking out 40 doors. And just saying, hey, by the way, 123 Main Street, we're doing an open house today. I understand that you're probably not looking to sell your house, but we'd love for you to come over to see your neighbor's house. And who knows, maybe you have a friend or a family member who would be interested in living in the neighborhood. It's not high pressure. It's just inviting them over. And here's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want all these sellers or all these looky-loos in my house. Yes, you do. When I walk into an open house as a buyer and there's 10 other buyers in there, even if not a single one's really a buyer, that creates urgency. There's nothing better to sell something than to create some urgency. FOMO, I have fear of missing out. What am I missing out on? So
yeah, also just, when other people are interested in the same thing, even whether or not it's missing out or not, it's that thing is now more valuable, right? Imagine going to a rock concert that consists of 3 people, right? That wouldn't be, you'd be like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this music isn't that great. Like, why am I here? There's 2 other people here. Right? Yeah. That would never happen. So having more people there is going to make it look like that thing is more valuable and of more interest.
Absolutely. And so here's a couple of rules for me. The purpose of an open house, and if you ask most agents, I'm going to guess majority of agents are going to say an open house serves 2 purposes. 1, potentially to get buyers, and 2, to keep my seller happy. Those are legitimate reasons, but I'm going to suggest that there's some other reasons that come up too. And the third, and arguably the most important to me, is you are auditioning to be somebody else's listing agent. And if you think about it that way, that will change the way that you do something. So, if I'm a seller, I don't necessarily walk into your open house and go, hey, Dale, I'm a seller and I'm looking to sell and I'm here to check out and see how you do open houses. They're not going to tell you that. Mm-hmm. So if 10 couples come in, or 10, groups come in, I'm going to guess that one of them is actually saying, I wonder how this guy's doing. So with that in mind, I like to have literally 10 signs on the street that I have the open house on. And I know that seems like a lot of people like, really? Can't they figure it out? Yes. And what am I doing? I'm telling every single potential seller who drives down that road that, holy crap, these guys put out some signs. They're doing something. I'm going to have those 20-foot flags. I don't know if you guys have all seen them, but we have them. They're like $100, and we got those 20-foot flags that sit in the front yard. We put balloons out. We want people to go, I'm not sure what's going on with this open house, but maybe I want to go check it out. An opportunity to have a real estate conversation with somebody. Don't miss this. Other things that you talked about. So I actually will slide dial as well. So those of you guys aren't familiar with slide dial, basically it's just a ringless voicemail. So you get them all the time, whether you're aware of them or not. but you all of a sudden you got a voicemail and go, my phone didn't ring. Well, that's probably somebody slide dialed you.
So I listen to my voicemails. I listen to them like once a week, Brian, my voicemails.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it's becoming less effective, to your point. But, you know, we'll slide dial a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, I'm not suggesting that we don't do it. I was just being funny and saying.
No, I get it.
Have some slide dials from you that I haven't listened to.
Don't tell anybody. Okay. But my point is this, you know, I can slide dial 200 people in about 5 minutes. So if you're busy, you don't have time to, you know, circle prospect your open house, at least slide dial it. And again, I'd prefer that you actually call. I understand sometimes you get busy. Run Facebook ads, run Craigslist ads, run Zillow, Truly, Realtor.com. Make it worth your time, because remember, you're auditioning for buyers, and to me, more importantly, you don't even know it, but you are auditioning for sellers. So
absolutely. And if you're farming a neighborhood, it's absolutely critical that you do these to a high level, right? If you have a farm, and ideally you have a farm. I mean, if you're a newer agent, or you don't really have a ton of business, or you don't have a ton of listings already yourself, then you're probably doing open houses in random places, and you're just hoping that you can get as many people through there as possible, or working effectively to make that happen. But if you are working in a farm, then that is an audition, right? That's a job interview every time that you do that. So great. That's awesome for generating people to come in. So then what are you going to do when they first come in to the house, right? If you're doing what you should be doing, you're lead generating people. One, you're either going to recognize some people when they walk in, if it's one of those sellers that you door knocked, right? If not, what I would suggest is welcome them in. Hey, welcome to the open house. Thanks for coming to see us. Where did you hear about the open house, right? Because if you're doing these things and you've blasted it out to your database, you put it on Facebook, find out where these people came from, right? It's a very easy question to ask them that they can answer easily for you, right? And kind of break the ice.
Yeah.
And then what you want to do is, if they identify, hey, I'm in your database and you emailed me, right? You probably don't need to make them sign in, right? Or you don't need to try to capture their info. But if they're like, oh, we saw the sign, or we just happened to see it on the internet, whatever it may be, then you can ask them, you know what, the seller has asked that everyone that attends for safety purposes signs in here. Please enter your information here, whether that's a tablet or a sheet, whatever you're going to do. And then typically you're going to ask them to let them go ahead and take a look through the home, or if they're the only ones there, you can ask them if they would like a tour of the home, if they'd like to see it themselves. But if you're getting multiple people coming in, then really you're just going to let them walk through. And what you're going to try to do is engage these people in conversation once they come back through the property.
Absolutely.
So what do you guys do, Brian?
The same thing. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Can I do that? Let me see. More.
The green button at the bottom.
Share. Perfect. Okay. So let me know when you can see this, Dale.
Can see it.
So we have this. Welcome. Please come in for security purposes. The seller asked that all guests sign in.
I didn't read that before we did this.
Yeah. So no, we didn't. But my point of this is that here's an opportunity right here to blame somebody else. And you guys have heard me talk about straw man or third parties. It's not me that wants you to sign in. The seller asked that you sign in. And that way, no one's going, well, Brian, I don't want to sign. Well, the seller asked me to do it. I love the opportunity for those type of things where somebody else is telling me that I have to do something, and they're not there to argue with. So. Yeah.
It's like your sales manager, right? Oh, man, you know what? My broker said we can't reduce the commission. So sorry.
Yes. So, I use third parties as much as humanly possible because, again, I can't argue with the third party. They're not there to show up. So something like this is great. I'm a huge fan for all you Ylopo users out there. Ylopo's got an open house app where basically they can just put in their information and it loads it directly into the CRM and then starts sending them alerts and similar homes. Like it looks at it and goes, oh, 123 Main Street, that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. $250,000 house. It literally will start sending them those houses just because they went in your open house app, which is a really cool thing. There's other really good ones out there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the A plan, but here's at least the B plan. Get their information because if you're going to spend 3, 4, 5 hours doing an open house, get some people's names and phone numbers, or otherwise, ultimately, at the end of the day, why are you really doing it?
Yes, exactly. Now, so they've gone through the property, they've taken a look at it, and we're going to have a conversation with them, right? So here's what, Brian, I think everybody should have a game. The game is I don't end my conversation with them by saying, okay, I'll send you some properties. How about that game, right?
Okay.
Let's see if we can end the conversation with something else, right? Okay. Which is great. I'd love to get together on Wednesday and show you some additional properties.
Nice.
Great. I'd love to meet with you on Thursday at your apartment so we can talk about the home buying process, right?
Okay.
I would challenge somebody to end that way.
Or you can slot close them. So I prefer slot closes. So I have time on Thursday and Friday. Which day works better for us to get together? Same type of thing. But, ultimately, I really do feel like a lot of times we're afraid to ask them, right? I just had this great conversation with them. They told me they don't have an agent. They told me that they're 6 months out. And I go, oh, great. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. What's the response to anything? Great. I've got a plan for that. Great. Most of the people I talk to are 6 months out. Whatever the case may be, find a way to actually continue to build rapport with these people. And to your point, Dale, find a way to get an appointment with them.
Yes. Ask for it. Ask for the appointment. Every single person who comes to that open house. It's something that I picked up from Joshua Smith. It's like, dude, just ask them for the appointment right now.
Who knew?
Let's do it. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Who was I talking to? Was it you? Maybe it was you. Where you're like, you've already pulled other houses that are available in the area before you get to the open house? Okay, I won't steal your thunder. Go for it.
All right, sure. This is a great technique, and I'll be honest, I have no idea where I learned it. I didn't invent it. But basically, let's say you're in a neighborhood and there's two, three other listings similar to this in this neighborhood. Pull them and literally make an appointment. So your open house is going to run from 1 to 3. Book an appointment with those houses from 3 to 5. And at the end of that, just give the people the MLS sheet, come through and say, hey, Dale, it's great to meet you today. From our conversation, it looks like maybe this house isn't the house for you. But I'll tell you what, obviously you like this neighborhood. There's 2 other houses for sale in this neighborhood. I'll be done at 3 o'clock. Why don't you meet me over at 124 Main Street, and here's the MLS sheet. And I've already got an appointment set up for that. I've talked to the other agents. They know what I'm doing. And I'd love to go and show you that house this afternoon. You have brought more value in doing that than any other agent has done, because every other agent didn't do God only knows what. You're literally trying to figure out how to help these people buy a house today. Now, is that going to work every time? Absolutely not. But imagine the time it does. Yes. So that's one of my favorite little tricks to do. If you want to take this to the next level, if you really get to the point where you're getting 20, 30, 40 people at an open house, and by the way, you can do that with massive advertising and, really circle prospecting, really door knocking, have 2 agents at that open house. And literally during the open house, one agent leaves and goes and shows the other 2 houses while the other agent mans the open house, and just work together on that. And that's a huge opportunity, a great teamwork thing. And, people love it. They're like, oh, you're clearly here to help me get what I want. And I'm going to guess if you do that, you're not going to lose that client.
Yeah, good. Now let's talk about some simple stuff, right? I just realized this, Brian. You and I kind of skipped over maybe some of the things that we consider as being like common knowledge, right? So let's say that, let's just talk about how do we start a conversation with somebody after they've looked through the property, right?
Okay.
Because you're going to end up with single people or, people by themselves. You're going to end up with a couple of people, a group. You're going to end up with people who are clearly a couple together. You're going to end up with like moms and daughters and dads and sons and any combination thereof, right? So how do you kick the conversation off with people? It's really simple, right? Just ask them what they thought of the house. Ask them if they live in the neighborhood right now. Ask them if they've been looking for a while. Ask them if they're currently working with an agent. That's a great question, right? Once you get into it, ask them if they're renting or if they currently own their own property. So any of these kind of questions, really the first one is ask them what they thought of the property, how it stacks up, how does it compare to other ones you've seen, right?
Yeah, here's a question that a lot of people don't go to, but I like this question sometimes. What didn't you like about the house? It feels backwards. We, as real estate agents, we have this really big tendency to say, tell me what you like, tell me the good stuff, tell me the good. Flip it on its head sometimes. Is there anything you didn't like about this house?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people love to tell you all the bad stuff, right?
But here's the thing, it's interesting. Sometimes they'll go, well, that one bathroom wasn't quite big enough, but besides that, it was kind of a good house for us. Sometimes by asking that question, you literally talk them into buying. They'll talk themselves because you're not really selling. You're just basically asking them to engage their brain. And, you know, obviously if they go through a litany of things that they didn't like about the house, then, you know, you've got an opportunity to say, well, great, let me find you a house that has this, this, and this. There's that opportunity. But, you know, sometimes that negative question, which is, as salespeople, we almost feel like we never want to ask, is one of the best questions to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay. Let's see. So that's, you know, how to get in a conversation with them. And then hopefully, you know, how to do a discovery with somebody: who, where, when, why, what, and how much, right? Just to uncover all those things. We're going to ask them to meet with us or for a next step, right? We're going to ask them if we can show them additional properties. We're going to ask them if we can get together at another time. And then let's just say that it's, you know, they're not, even if they are going to meet us later on or the next day or sometime this week, or if they're not, right? If they're a nurture, we're going to be adding them into the system. The important things that we want to educate everybody on, just like with portal leads and with some other internet leads, is that, you know, I'm showing this house today. Even if this one doesn't work for you, I have access to all the homes that are available on the market. And in fact, I'm able to I have that data before it even gets out into the internet. So if I'm able to just, you know, put the details in that you and I have talked about, I'll set you up in my system. And, you know, if it's slow, do it right there. Set them up in your system, make the search right there, almost make it like a buyer consultation where you're with somebody, right? Just do it right there. And then another thing that I like to do is if we are going to have, for instance, you would say like, hey, you know what? I'd really like to just let you know quickly if something comes on the market that I think might be a great fit for you. I'd like to text it to you. What's your number, right? Now, I know you had them try to sign in before. I don't care, right? Take your cell phone out and say, what's your number? And start punching it into your phone and say, I'm going to text you my info right now, right? Just Perfect. Another way for you to try to get the real contact info for this person, because I don't know about you, Brian, but occasionally people like to put fake information on that sheet, right?
Who knew, you know? You find out. Here's the funniest thing, and something I don't get, Dale. I don't mind if you give me 555-1212. I get it. You didn't want to give me your phone number, but for the love of God, why are people giving me a phone number that's legit that's not theirs? So that's one of my big pet peeves. If you're going to tell me a bad phone number, at least make it bad. Don't screw somebody else so I'm going to harass them for 3 weeks to find out that they weren't even you. Yeah. But I love that. So let me ask you this. I feel like this is what you're saying. Are you actually sending people the V card?
So I do. I send a text. So on my phone, you know, it's Android. I'm not super tech savvy, but when I say, when I punch their info in, if I want to send a contact info, I can either send a V card or text. I send it as text, and then it just shows up in their thing as text.
Gotcha. I'm a big fan of the V card, but the text works well as well. You know, it's funny. For some reason, I can't send my wife anything. I can't send V cards to my wife. She has an Android and I have an iPhone. They don't play well together all the time. So to your point, it might be better to do that. But I always follow up with this. Please put my contact information in your phone. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting how often people will do exactly what you tell them to do, right?
Yes. If
I send them my information, here's my information, they go, okay, great. But if I tell them, here's my information, please put it in your phone, they'll go, oh, okay, and put it in their phone. And I know that seems like a little subtle thing. I know it's really implied that the reasoning I'm sending you my information so you'll have my information. Take the next step. And I think, again, that sounds really silly to most of us listening. Of course, the reason that we did that is that don't take that for granted. Tell people what to do, because when you tell them what to do, guess what? They'll do what you ask them to do. Majority.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of times they will. Good. Okay. And then so follow up. Let's say we didn't get them to meet with us later. We didn't get to show them any houses later on. You know, we unfortunately got stuck with, I'm going to send you properties, right, and follow up with you. Okay, that happens. Mm-hmm. We tried to avoid it, but we couldn't. So now follow up time, right? And, you know, honestly, this is just going to pretty much become any other sort of follow-up. Hey, this is Dale. You came through my open house the other day. I saw some really great properties that I think would suit you. And I've emailed them over. Did you get the email? Can we look at that? Or something like that, right?
Very simple, very easy. Don't, you know, again, let's not try and be too salesy. Let's just, offer value. Exactly. One of the things, pro tip, if you will, one of the things that we found out that's really starting to be pretty successful also is at the end of your open house, record a video text. And by the way, if you guys don't know about video text, never longer than 15 seconds. Turn your phone to the minimum setting as far as the quality, because what I find is I'm trying to send a 4K video, not on purpose, but all of a sudden it doesn't go through. It doesn't matter. You don't look that good anyway. You don't need it to be in 4K. So turn your phone all the way down to, the lowest setting that it goes, and something like this. Hey, Dale, this is Brian, just reaching out. Just wanted to thank you for coming to our open house today. And, I'll be following up with you later on this week. If you need anything for real estate, let me know. Something simple, easy, short. You're not trying to get them to call you back. You're just trying to say, oh, this guy follows up with me. This guy follows up with me. This guy is someone who's wanting to work. And again, that might have been a seller. And that one little thing that you do with that person might go, wow, this guy really stays on top of stuff. You got to remember the perception that most people have of real estate agents. It's not a positive one. It's
right.
Not that we're a group of people who are professional and organized and all this stuff. When you act that way, when you act professional and organized and outside the box, that's a good way to get people to work with you. I'm a firm believer that the number one thing we need to be in 2019, there's two things. We need to be professional and be different. Yeah. And if we're those two things, we'll stand out. I don't know how many agents are in your market, but heck, there's a lot of competition.
Like 5,000.
Yeah. So, that's a lot of people that you're competing with. Stand out. And this is a great opportunity. You can't stand out to all million people in your market, but what you can stand out to is the people that you got in front of, or a limited group. I was telling somebody this yesterday. I can't be Coke for the 500,000 people that are in my market. But if I get it down to the people in my database, I can be Coke. In other words, I can go after them. I can call them. I can text them. I can get in front of them with ads. I can constantly be in front of these people. And the people in my database can literally think I'm the only real estate agent in my area.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Real quick, you mentioned video texts, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing fancy. It doesn't have to be a crazy app, right? You don't have to have anything fancy on your phone. You just shoot a quick video and text it to their number. That's a video text, right?
That's all it is, guys. How do you make a video text? You hold your phone in front of your face and talk to it. And the second you make it more complex than that, you've screwed yourself. Stop it. It literally is this. And I'll handle all the objections before people get them. I don't look good. I don't care. That's how you look. I don't sound good.
Guess what? That's what you actually look like in real life. That's what those people just saw.
I hate my voice. Okay, I hate mine too. What I really do like, though, is more customers, more clients, more transactions. So right. Get over what you look like, get over what you sound like, get over the perfection. And by the way, if you do it perfect, they don't think you're real. No. Literally. We're talking about slide dials. One of the tricks that you do with slide dials is you cough right before you do your script, because no one would do that or go, oh, sorry. Hey, this is Brian literally they teach people to do that. When we start talking about text, there's some text to AI stuff out there, and I don't want to go into that whole thing, but they literally make mistakes. They're programmed to make mistakes. Why? Because human beings make mistakes. Text messages aren't perfect. Videos aren't perfect. The thing that's great about all these things is it makes us real. We're not these stodgy, 75-year-old men out selling houses. We are a group of people who are connecting with people, and not that 75-year-old men can't sell houses, but we're just trying to communicate.
We're gonna get some messages about that one, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I sometimes I need to shut my mouth. But anyway, my point is be real. Being real for 10 seconds is significantly better than trying to be uber professional and super organized. Be a person. I want to do business with people I know, like, and trust.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, don't try to make it too fancy. Just get it out there, and then continue following up with them. What you're going to need to do. Sometimes people are just going to ghost you. Sometimes people are not going to answer you, right? But you want to stay in front of them with text, email, if you can. If you're doing any sort of retargeting ads or anything like that, throw them into that list and be in front of them with whatever content you're posting, right? So that you're in front of those leads and continue trying to talk to them. Invite them out to another open house. Just tell them, there was one great text that Tristan was sending out. I don't remember what it was. It was something like, hey, I'm going to be showing these couple of houses in this neighborhood, wherever they happen to be looking. I'm going to be doing that on Saturday. Would you be able to join me? ? Right? I haven't booked it or anything. I'm just going to see if I can get you to come meet with me, right?
Absolutely.
So vary your messages, right? It's not just always like, hey, will you talk to me? It's, oh, I'm going to be going and doing this thing. Or, hey, I just sent you this. Did you get it? different messages like that to try to help you actually break the ice and get them to respond to you.
Cool. And let me finish up with a couple of things that I also like. I'm a big USP guy, and I don't know how many other people use USPs. I think they're one of the things that are really helping us push our business forward. So I have an open house USP. And for those of you who don't know what a USP is, unique selling proposition. All we're doing is making an offer that's different from somebody else. So a great way to follow up with is send a quick text. Hey, since you were at our open house yesterday, I wanted to let you know that everyone who attended our open house yesterday, we're offering them a free home warranty when they work with us to buy their next house.
Nice.
Something really simple like that, to get them to call you back to go, yeah, I want to work with Brian because he's offering me this free home warranty. Or anything that you can offer people, and again, being different is a great opportunity. And so we have those. And by the way, we have flyers there. We use what we call a move-up buyer program that's going to be at our open houses as well. What's a move-up buyer program? It's a seller program, really basically, where you get a discount on listing with us, but you have to list and buy with us. And that's the move-up buyer program. These things are not uber complex. Agents do them all the time, but they don't put it in a systemized way that they can use to follow up and sell with. That's the only thing I'm doing. I didn't create any of these things. I just systematized them.
Yeah. And so what you do also is you take that USP, that message, and you put it onto like a banner stand at your open house, right? 2 banner stands. You have signs on a table. You have flyers that people can take with them that talk about the program, right? So promote it like you're advertising things, right? Basically, you're selling your services is what you're selling.
Absolutely. So, don't be afraid to use USPs. I hear this objection all the time with USPs. Well, I don't want to give away all my commission. Well, here's the thing.
Don't give away your commission then.
Yeah, don't. But here's the thing. It's a marketing expense is how I look at it. If I spend $500 to buy a home warranty and then I got a $7,000 commission check, yeah, I only made $6,500, but still like a pretty good day to me.
What you do is you go to one of your vendors and you say, hey, I need X amount of budget for home warranties for my clients, right? They pay for it.
Perfect.
That's how you get that stuff funded. It doesn't have to, a lot of times the money doesn't have to come out of your pocket. We're the pointy end of the spear oftentimes when it comes to like lead generation. And there's a whole army of people behind us that want that business for auxiliary services that are willing to contribute to that pointy end of the spear to help secure those buyers.
Well, that sounds like an entire cash call that we're going to have in the future. I think you're 100% right. I'm always dumbfounded by the number of people who feel like to earn my business, what they need to do is buy me lunch. No, that doesn't work in my business. If you want my business, you're going to co-market with $. And
yeah,
that's
exactly.
Saying you're going to give me money because at the end of the day, I know what my budget is and your budget is, $150 to buy my group lunch. Yeah. I don't need lunch. I'm good. What I need is someone contributing and helping me generate more business. And I'm a big fan of those co-marketing things. We do a lot of that.
Absolutely. Great. We may have to make that another topic for another call.
I think so.
All right. We're at time. Brian, great talking to you today. Great topic. I hope that everybody got some good stuff out of that. If you guys have any questions or anything, how do I deal with this? What should I do in this case? Just message in on this live. Brian or I will see it and we'll be able to answer you guys. So good seeing you today for Cash Call. Brian, thanks.
Dale, as always, I enjoy it. It's always, I always learn something too. So it's really enjoyable doing this with you and we'll see you again soon.
All right. See you next week.